you can be in any position really. I'm just going to wait for that very loud motorbike to go past. Yeah, you can be in any position for this really. So the idea is that you are able to really do this in everyday life as well. So it's not just when lying down, it's not just when sitting or anything like that. But obviously it's easier to start off doing it whilst you're in a comfortable position. So I'll just be recommending positions more than anything. Obviously it's entirely up to yourselves. So maybe starting lying down with your legs bent. The reason for the legs being bent is the lower back can just release a little bit. And so we'll just start getting acquainted with the body. Just notice the body. Notice how it's feeling today. Notice the breath. Not changing the breath, just observing. And then just start to feel the ground beneath you. So whether that's seated, whether that's lying down, walking, what have you, just feeling the ground. And maybe start to slow the breathing down, so not trying to take more air in as such, but just a softer, longer inhale and exhale, if that's comfortable to do. And if you are lying down, you're going to interlace your fingers and then just place them underneath your head. And then just let the body relax. And then you'll open your eyes if they're not already. And with your eyes only, look to the right. So the head stays completely still and the eyes will look over to the right. And you're leaving the eyes there, so they're going to be there for about a minute or so. And just try and keep the body relaxed. And we're kind of just resetting the nervous system here. And then bring the eyes to the center and then over to the other side. Again, holding them there. Keeping everything as relaxed as you can. And then bringing the eyes back to the center and releasing the hands away from the head. So yoga, I would say, is the quest for truth, really. And we're kind of the experimenters, and that's how we get to find the truth, because the only real truth really is our own truth and what we experience. Now, what happens is that we have brains that kind of cloud over the truth, essentially. So what we're trying to find is the true nature of our being and who we are. That's the fundamental question in yoga, is who am I? And then we're also trying to get to the truth of our experience as this being, whatever this being may be. So this is a very simple way of sort of almost discovering that. I have to credit the teacher for it, Rupert Spira, because it is so simple and obvious that it's almost no one ever sort of does it. So you're going to think of a sentence that's neutral. For example, my name is Jonathan. It could just simply be that, but with your name. And just keep repeating that neutral sentence in your mind. And so basically what we're doing here is generating thought. And try and feel in your experience where that thought is, essentially. So not going, it's in my brain, because that's what you're taught, but actually feeling where that thought may be. And then you're going to slow the sentence down, so your sort of speed of my name is, and so on. And without too much effort, just try and start to notice the gaps between the words. So what is in the space between the words? And try again just to experience that. Try not to think about it, because as soon as you try and think about it, you're going to be filling those gaps in. And so you might notice in those gaps, if you think of each word and each thought as an object, so in those gaps we're objectless. And so essentially that little experience in the gaps between the words is your true nature. That is your being. That is consciousness, or just pure awareness, where you're literally you're just aware. You're not aware of ... You are just aware. So try it again, and just try and again experience that just being awareness, that gap between the words. And try and get a sense of what that experience is. And then, as a little experiment, try and separate a word from that space, if that makes any sense. Is it possible? So when those words disappear, do they sort of move away from that space? Where do they go? Is another way of describing that, perhaps. So there's, in our experience, there's no way of plucking out just a thought. That thought and that awareness are always joined together. But it's almost as if, the awareness is just on its own, or just awareness, and then awareness becomes a thought, but it's still that awareness behind it altogether. And that's the same for all objects and all experiences, all awareness. They cannot be separated. It's just our mind that seems to separate everything. So we'll find how the mind sort of separates things. So start to listen around in your environment for sounds. So at the moment you're not going to label any of them. Start off just scanning your environment for all the sounds that you can hear. And now just try and notice sound. So the whole time we're just trying to keep the mind out of this. So just notice sound. So it's all sounds at once. And now the mind and popular knowledge would tell you that the sounds are outside of you. But in your actual experience right now, where do you experience sound? Where do all of these sounds seem to be in your experience? With the eyes closed and without being able to see sources of sound and so on, all of these sounds almost feel as if they are within. They are that same awareness. And now you're going to move around all the sounds, but now use the brain and label each sound as you move from it. So in your mind you'll say what the source of the sound you think it might be. And does that change how you experience the sound in any way? As soon as you're labeling that sound, does it feel that it's separate from you and no longer occurring within you? Maybe fluctuate between just trying to experience all sound and labeling the sounds and just noticing how that changes your experience. Okay. And then we'll try and experience the body but without the thought of the body. So, the body is a big area that we think is ourself. We think that our thoughts or our brain and the body are who we are. So you're going to try and forget that you are a body. Try and forget that you have a brain almost, even though you need it to try and understand the words that I say. So to do that, you almost just forget all previous knowledge, and just imagine that you are just experiencing life for the very first time. And so just feel what is this experience of or maybe we'll start smaller, in fact. Okay, so bring your attention to your hand, either hand, just one hand. And now forget knowledge of hand. Just keep your attention in that area where you ended up. And what can you feel? And what you might be feeling is almost tingling sensations. Like little vibrations almost. Now, can you find an outline to those vibrations, those tingles? So using your experience and what you're feeling right now in the sensations in that hand, can you find an outline to them that in any way resembles the shape of a hand? And now do that with your whole body. So try and be aware of the body in your experience, the sensations, and then forget the label of the body, forget any knowledge of shape or anything. You're experiencing this life for the very first time. And now you might feel and notice a whole load of sensations. And just spend some time experiencing those. And again, now try and find the edge to these sensations. And see if in any way that there is an edge, first of all, to draw. Is if you can find an edge. And if any way they resemble the shape of what you previously thought of as a body. Okay, now you're going to just change position. So if you are seated or anything, then just maybe just a little shuffle around. If you're lying on your back, then maybe just lying on one side, just to change the position of the body. And then again, forgetting about the body, forgetting about any previous thoughts or memory of the body. Tuning into the sensations, all those vibrations. Are these vibrations ever the same, or are they continually changing? Do these vibrations feel, good, bad, neutral? And obviously that's a label of the mind, but we'll go there briefly. And now, as this is your very first experience of being a body in this world, or a being in this world, is there any indication in those sensations of weight? Is there any indication of those sensations being in space? In other words, can you feel sensations and then suddenly experience an area where there's no sensations? What would be space? And then what about, say, the floor or the chair or whatever contact points you have with what the brain would call a solid object? Can you find an edge where the sensations stop and they become that solid object, or what we call a solid object? Or are those two things actually just one thing? Could you almost move those sensations further away, so that area that you thought may have been solid, say the floor, can those sensations almost move into the floor in your experience? So you're not using any thought here, literally just feeling. Okay. And then you'll be returning to lie on your back if you're lying on your side. And then you'll be bringing what you call your arms up towards the ceiling. So the arms are pointing up towards the ceiling in whatever position you're in. And again, forgetting body, forgetting labels. Just feel what is above you as sensations. So if you think, if we had our arms above us, we'd usually label things like muscle effort, maybe fatigue, lots of different labels that would give. But when you're just feeling them as sensations, what do they feel as? Does it almost become effortless, as if it's just sensations floating above you, or what you think as you? And then as slowly as you can, so it's almost, you won't be able to see yourself moving if your eyes were open. Start to bring your arms back down to the ground. It could be bringing them down wide or straight down by your side, but you'll be barely moving. So moving as slowly as you possibly can. And the whole way down, however long that takes, you're just trying to feel it as sensations, as those little vibrations. And now keep noticing how these sensations are just constantly changing. And eventually resting the arms so they're down. So when we've been working with the sensations, we're still, traditionally you'd say, working with an object, something outside of yourself. But in actuality, that, you know, the sensations are your awareness. So the whole time you're aware of that. But you'll have noticed perhaps that when you're noticing the sensations, then you're less aware of, say, the sounds around you, or you may notice that there's less thoughts going on. Although it's more likely that these things are still obviously being created in your awareness or by your awareness, but the focus isn't on those. So now try and spend some time without focusing your awareness on anything in particular. So maybe an easier way to do that would be to start off being aware of the sensations of the body, and then just slowly try and relax any focus and you might notice that suddenly something comes into your focus, maybe a sound in the background. And then if that does happen, you just notice that and then just come back to just being aware. And now you're going to bring that awareness towards your breath, or let the breath come into your awareness more prevalently. And again, this is your very first experience of life. How does the breath feel in your experience? Absolutely no knowledge of locations of what we think of as being the breath, or parts that can't speak today, parts that breathe. Is there any part of your experience that the breath doesn't seem to touch? And if there is, can you make the breath touch every part of your experience? It's almost feeling the breath as waves, and you are the water or the sea. Keep feeling the breath in this way. Even though you're doing absolutely nothing, how vivid and rich this experience is. All the little subtleties going on, all the little changes going on constantly in your experience right now. And notice if there is any discomfort in any way, whether that's coming from the body or the mind. Where does it really come from? And then relaxing any focus there on the breath. If you're lying on your back, move to lie on your side and just relax there. And then you'll be slowly and gently pushing yourself up to a seated position if you are lying down. If you're already seated, you're remaining in a seated position. And then once you're seated, you'll be rubbing your hands together and creating some warmth there. And then just resting your hands over your eyes. And then removing the hands, rubbing them together again. And then just resting the hands over the heart area. And then forgetting hands and heart and labels, and just try and feel the hands and the heart as one thing. So it's almost as if your hands are beating your heart. And then from that place, just give yourself thanks for taking the time out of your day to practice yoga and for the teachings of yoga. And thank you.